Their partial power to create does not make them God or Ishvara. Their consciousness of themselves as separate lords is therefore merely false prestige. It is not valid. Okay, that's the verse. Now, in the purport, a devotee who has fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord knows very well that the creative energy of the living entities, from Lord Brahma down to the small ant, exists because the living entities are part and parcel of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 15.7, the Lord says, Mamaivam so jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. The living entities are nothing but very small portions of the Supreme Spirit, like sparks of a fire. Because they are part of the Supreme, they have a creative quality in very minute quantity. The so-called scientists of the modern materialistic world are proud because they have created modern facilities like great airplanes. But credit for creating the airplanes should go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not to the scientists who have invented or created the so-called wonderful products. Okay. The first consideration is the intelligence of the scientist. One must be elevated by dictation of the Supreme Lord, who says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Matak smriti jnanam apohanam cha. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Because the Supreme Lord as Supersoul sits within the core of every living entity's heart, the dictation by which one advances in scientific knowledge or creative faculties comes from him. Furthermore, the ingredients to manufacture wonderful machines like airplanes are also supplied by the Lord, not by the scientists. Before the airplane was created, its ingredients already existed, having been caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when the manifested creation of the airplane is ruined, the remaining debris is a problem for the so-called creators. Another example is that the West is creating many automobiles. They're going to have junkyards too. The ingredients for these cars are supplied, of course, by the Supreme Lord. And the intelligence for the so-called creation is also supplied by the Lord. Ultimately, when the cars are demolished, the so-called creators are faced with the problem of what to do with them, with their ingredients. The actual creator, the original creator, is the personality of Godhead. Only in the interim does someone create something with intelligence supplied by the Lord, and later the creation again becomes a problem. Therefore, the so-called creator is not to be credited with the act of creation. The only credit goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is rightly stated herein that the credit for all the opulences of creation, maintenance, and annihilation belongs to the Supreme Lord, not to the living entities. Now, see, that is the most profound and uh, the most profound statement. The real creator is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has given everyone knowledge. And if you use that knowledge properly, you're able to do nice things. But actually, whatever you do, it's because of Krishna. It's not because you or I have independently created something. And therefore it says here, therefore the so-called creator is not to be credited with the act of creation. The only credit goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is rightly stated herein that the credit for all the opulences of creation, maintenance, and annihilation belongs to the Supreme Lord, not to the living entities. There it is. That is the that's the what you could say the gospel truth. Next, text 36, and we're in the Canto 6, chapter 16, text 36, entitled King Chitraketu Meets the Supreme Lord. Text 36. You exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything. From the most minute particle of the cosmic manifestation, the atom, to the gigantic universes and total material energy. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. Okay, well, that's explaining who we are, actually. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Brahma Samhita 533 says, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Anyam Purana Purusham Navyoganam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning, although expanded into unlimited forms. Still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord cannot be understood even by the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no cause, for he is the cause of everything. He's the cause of all causes. The Lord is beyond the workings of cause and effect. Okay, that's an important statement. He is eternally existing. In another verse, the Brahma Samhita says, Adantara sta paramanu chayantarastam. The Lord exists within the gigantic universe and within the atom. The descent of the Lord into the atom and the universe indicates that without his presence, nothing could factually exist. Yeah, and that is a very profound statement. If you want to know what is the most fundamental element in the material world, that is the atoms. But where do the atoms come from? They come from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when these atoms are there, different things are seem to be created or built. Let's put it like that. But obviously, the energy for doing that is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, is there any other, let's say, uh, any other origin for all this creation? No, there isn't. The scientists, they can't create the energy in this material world. It's already there. It's been there. They can maybe put things together in different ways, but the energy is given by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But when they see a vast ocean, they are puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. Well, that's a very significant statement. They think that everything evolved from chemicals. But where did the chemicals come from? That's the big question. That they do not know. Since the Supreme Personality of God is the cause of all causes. Now, see, that's the best way to understand who Krishna is. The cause of all causes. He can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. Haribol. That is the correct understanding. We actually see that chemicals are produced from living entities. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree. Rather, the tree is the cause of the acid. Similarly, so citric acid is not the cause of the tree. Rather, the tree is the cause of the acid. Similarly, the Supreme Personality Godhead is the cause of everything. He is the cause of the tree that produces the citric acid. Bijamam sarvabhutanam. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, now that is a fundamental statement, and modern chemists and so-called, what do you call, so-called scientists would not accept that statement because they're puffed up and blind. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality Godhead, for He is the cause of the chemicals. Yeah. Where did the chemicals come from? They don't know. Scientists don't know where the chemicals came from. They can tell you, oh, this is this chemical and this is another chemical. But where did it come from? And that's the most important question. It came from Krishna. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord. And when everything is annihilated or dissolved, the original potency enters the body of the Supreme Lord. Okay, now we're talking about real knowledge, but all of this would be rejected by the modern scientists. They don't know. Therefore, this verse says, Adav ante picha satvanam yad dhruvam tad evantaral lepi. The word dhruvam means permanent. The permanent reality is Krishna, not this cosmic manifestation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Adir Hidevanam and Matak Sarvam Pravartate. Krishna is the original cause of everything. Arjuna recognized Lord Shri Krishna as the original person. Purusham sasritam vidyam avidevam ajam vibho. And the Brahma Samhita describes him, meaning Krishna, as the original person. Govindam Adi Purusham. He is the cause of all causes. There it is again. We've read that many times. Whether at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle, he is the cause of all causes. There's no other cause. Okay, these are wonderful statements by Prabhupada. So let's see, there's some really nice statements in this purport. It says that the scientists think that everything evolved from chemicals. But where did the chemicals come from? That they do not know. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. Yeah, like if you look at the chemical constituent of water, right? So what's water made of?
Hydrogen and oxygen.
Right. Where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the ocean, it's made up of water. Where did all that come from? You have to ask that question, Some people say, well, it's always been there. No, it hasn't always been there. You have to, be scientific about all this. So that's why Prabhupada says, scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But when they see a vast ocean, they are puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. Yeah, that's a big question. Who can answer that question? Right. People say, well, it's always been there. No, it's not. That's not the answer. So here it says, scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But when they see a vast ocean, they are puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. They think that everything evolved from chemicals. But where did the chemicals come from? That they do not know. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. We actually see that chemicals are produced from living entities. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. And citric acid is not the cause of the tree. Rather, the tree is the cause of the acid. Because it's pulling it out from the roots of the tree. The tree is pulling out the citric acid from the earth. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree. Rather, the tree is the cause of the acid. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of everything. He is the cause of the tree that produces the citric acid. Vijanmam sarvabhutanam. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where he is the cause of the chemicals. Okay, now we know where the chemicals are coming from Krishna. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord. And when everything is annihilated or dissolved, the original potency enters the body of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, this verse says, Adav ante pija satmanam yadruvam tad evantarale p. The word dhruvam means permanent. The permanent reality is Krishna, not this cosmic manifestation. Hey, then that would be something that the scientists say. Well, we can't accept that because we can't see this Krishna. Therefore, we cannot accept that. But what is their explanation? Where did all this, water come from? With chemicals, things. They don't know. They can say this or that, but they don't really know. By the way, why don't you look up on chat?
GPT?
Yeah, where's where did the water come from in the world? They might say, well, it's made of hydrogen and oxygen or something. But where did it come from? I mean, how was it produced?
Said that's a big question.
Okay.
The answer depends on which water you mean. Then, on Earth, scientists think Earth's water came from a combination of sources. The first, the primordial water in the solar nebula. Some water was likely incorporated directly into the Earth's building blocks when the planet formed about 4.5 billion years ago.
That is complete speculation. They don't know for sure.
Number two, asteroids and comets. After Earth formed, icy bodies bombarded the planet, delivering additional water. Isotope um, measurements. One second. Just open the door.
You see, this is a fundamental question,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have really what you would call solid, knowledge of it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the second category is those asteroids and comets. After Earth formed, icy bodies bombarded the planet, delivering additional water. Isotope measurements, ratios of hydrogen to deuterium in many asteroids match those in Earth's oceans. Number three, volcanic outgassing. Early Earth's interior contained hydrogen and oxygen that combined to form water vapor, which escaped through volcanoes and condensed into oceans on the planet as the planet cooled. So, they- yeah, basically they think that Earth had all the water molecules as part of it, and then through volcanoes as well as these asteroids coming in, the Earth had this excess water surface at the top.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what have they been smoking? As we say, what have you been smoking? This is nonsense. They don't know that. Where's the proof? Science is you have an idea, you do some experimentation, and then you have to prove it. Where's their proof? They don't have proof for what you just said. They don't have the proof of it.
Here is one statement.
Huh?
There's one statement that water molecules in the universe, the water molecules form easily in space. In cold molecular clouds, hydrogen and oxygen atoms stick to dust grains, react, and create ice. Stars and planetary systems then inherit this water during formation.
Inherit. Okay.
Well, I mean, this is
It's an explanation.
It's an explanation, but in one way, this confirms what Bhagavatam is saying, right? Like, of the Panchamahabhutas were created first, and then earth, water, fire, air, ether, all those things. So, I don't know that this is the practical way it happened, but what they're saying is in the space already the water exists.
Yeah.
And then as the planets
Where did the water come from?
Obviously, they don't say where that came from, but they're just saying that's how the particles form in the space also. It is already existing in the universe. So, which is one way is what Lord Bhagavatam says, that, the water is one of the 5 primary elements that got created, which in a way they're confirming that the water, they don't know how it get created, but it was there, or it was created by some source. Right, and they're saying that stars and planetary systems then inherit this water during the formation. So water
Inherited.
uh,
Okay.
so that's
Are
their
they living beings that they can inherit?
so it's their explanation of sorts.
Well, yeah, that's why Prabhupada says here. Scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But when they see a vast ocean, they are puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. They think that everything evolved from chemicals, but where did the chemicals come from? That they do not know. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. We actually see that chemicals are produced from living entities. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree. Rather, the tree is the cause of the acid. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of everything. He is the cause of the tree that produces the citric acid. Ijamam Sarvabhutam. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For he is the cause of the chemicals. Now, that is something that is, let's say, that the scientists will reject that statement because they say there's no proof of that. But what is their explanation? They don't know. They just speculate. So if they don't have, like, I mean, you could ask this question: where did the chemicals come from? Well, they'll say, well, it comes from this or that, but ultimately, they don't really know. They don't really know. Therefore, Prabhupada says here, devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he is the cause of the chemicals. Now, see, that is like a major, major statement that the scientists would never accept. Never, they would never accept that. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord, and when everything is annihilated or dissolved, the original potency enters the body of the Supreme Lord. Again, that statement like that they would never accept. Therefore, this verse says, Adav ante pichas sattvanam yadruvam kad evantarale pi. The word dhruvam means permanent. The permanent reality is Krishna. not the cosmic manifestation. I like that statement. The permanent reality is Krishna, not this cosmic manifestation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Adir Devanam and Matak Sarvam Pravartate, Krishna is the original cause of everything. Arjuna recognized Lord Shri Krishna as the original person. Purusham Sasvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibham. And the Brahma Samhita describes him as the original person. Govindam Adi Purusham. He is the cause of all causes, whether at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. And that is a very bold statement by Prabhupada. Very, very bold statement. But that's the whole point. Krishna can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create the situation for chemical evolution. We actually see that chemicals are produced from living entities. That's a fact. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree, rather the tree is the cause of the citric acid. Yeah, because the tree is pulling the citric acid from the earth. So similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of everything. He's the cause of the tree that produces the citric acid. So now we're going farther deep into the origin of things, the real origin of things. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality Godhead, for He is the cause of the chemicals. Now that's a question, that's a statement that scientists probably will not accept, but that's what the truth is. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so it's very, very difficult for scientists to accept a statement like that, because that means that the Lord has an infinite production of things that are inconceivable for ordinary people. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord, and when everything is annihilated or dissolved, the original potency enters the body of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, this verse says, Adav ante pi cha satvanam ya dhruvam tad evantara pi. The word dhruvam means permanent. The permanent reality is Krishna, not the cosmic manifestation. Okay, that's a wonderful statement. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Adir Hi Devanam and Matak Sarvam Pravartam said, Krishna is the original cause of everything. Arjuna recognized Lord Shri Krishna as the original person. Purusham Sastvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. And the Brahma Samhita describes him as the original person. Govindam Adi Purusham. He is the cause of all causes, whether at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. Okay, so this one person is the cause of everything. So if you want to say, where did all the water come from? Krishna. Oh, wait a minute. How do you know that? Well, what's your explanation? We have an explanation. It comes from Krishna. What is your explanation? And, they'll say, well, this, that, and so forth. They don't know for sure. But we have a positive explanation. Everything comes from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why it says, devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for He is the cause of the chemicals. Now we know where the chemicals came from. The body of Krishna. Why? Because since the Supreme Personality Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. We actually see that chemicals are produced from living entities. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree. Rather, the tree is the cause of the acid. Okay, so where did the tree come from? Krishna. So, uh, I like the way Prabhupada writes. So he makes everything clear. Of course, the scientists don't accept this, but but what is their explanation? Their explanation is zero. They don't know where everything came from. And again, it says scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But when they see a vast ocean, they are puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. Yeah, there you are. That's a fundamental question. They think that everything evolved from chemicals, but where did the chemicals come from? That they do not know. Okay, oh boys, but see, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. So Prabhupada is saying, okay, we know where all the chemicals came from. They all came from Krishna. All right. Now, do you have a better explanation? You see the chemicals, but you don't have an explanation of where it came from. We see the chemicals and we have an explanation of where it came from. See? So therefore, the scientists are so puffed up that they will reject this explanation. But what is their explanation? They have no explanation. And if you look at our chapter, whatever it is,
GPT.
what does it say? Where do the chemicals come from?
I just asked that. Let me see. That depends on the scale, whether you are asking about the universe or our solar system or the earth. But if it is in the universe, it came because number one, Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago, produced hydrogen, helium, and tiny amounts of lithium. These were the simplest elements. Everything heavier came later. First generation stars. Inside stars, nuclear fusion forged heavier elements. Helium came from helium became the origin for carbon and oxygen. Later, neon, magnesium, silicon, sulfur, and iron. Supernova and neutron star mergers. Massive stars exploded, scattering these elements. Even heavier elements like gold, uranium, and platinum formed in these cataclysmic events and were ejected into the space. Cosmic recycling.
Where's the proof? Can they do an experiment to prove what they're saying?
Well, they are analyzing the images of the space right now, and again, we can ask further exactly how they come to these theories. Cosmic recycling, the enriched gas mixed into molecular clouds, which collapse to form new stars and planetary systems, including our sun. This means the atoms in your body were once part of ancient stars. So, and then particularly in our solar system, about 4.6 billion years ago, the solar nebula, a swirling disk of dust and gas, contained all these elements. Dust grains coated with ices and complex molecules clumped together into planetesimals, asteroids, and comets, seeds for Earth and its chemistry. Many organic molecules like amino acid precursors likely formed
Likely. That's a speculation. Go ahead.
on dust grains and in the interstellar space before being incorporated into planets. Earth inherited its chemical inventory from solar nebula. Light elements like hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen dominate life and water. Heavier elements like iron, nickel sank into the core when silicates built the crust. Subsequent processes like volcanoes and plate tectonics and lightning and UV radiation reorganized these chemicals into diverse compounds that we see today. So that's their understanding.
Speculation. They don't know if that's true. That's an explanation. It sounds good, but where's the proof? Science is you have a hunch, you do experiments, and if you prove your hunch, then it's very true. But have they done an experiment to produce what they're saying? They're not doing any experiment to prove what they're saying is true.
If this is true, they should be able to recreate this whole thing.
Yeah. They should be able to
and create
do
another
it.
universe and see if this whole thing happens.
Yeah. Okay.
So I asked, how are these theories arrived at? What's the proof?
Yeah.
Great question. Understanding the evidence behind cosmic and planetary chemical origins involves many fields like astronomy, cosmochemistry, nuclear physics, and geology. Then it said cosmic chemical origins, Big Bang nucleosynthesis.
So we keep coming back to the Big Bang. Big bum.
The theory development. Physics of the early universe predicts that in the first few minutes, temperatures and densities allowed only light nuclei to form.
This is all speculation. Let them do an experiment.
So here the proof.
Okay.
Cosmic microwave background, CMB. I don't know what.
You don't know what that is.
Its temperature fluctuations match Big Bang models. Apparently, cosmic microwave background, I think some kind of test. Elemental abundances, observations of ancient metal poor stars and intergalactic gas show the predicted 75% hydrogen, 25% helium ratio, exactly what Big Bang calculations predict. So they're
Let them do an experiment. Let's show us the experiment to prove it.
It says, and even the Big Bang, right? Like whoever came up with that truth, they're adding, truth or like theory, they're adding to that theory. Like new scientists are adding to that theory and they're evolving it, right? Like it's not like anybody can explain what has happened.
No, it's not that anybody can do an experiment
Yes.
to prove it.
Even explanation, Maharaj, yes, there is the experiment, even the explanation. It's not like it that one person came up with that explanation. Some scientists had a theory, then other people keep adding to that theory, and it keeps on evolving.
Yeah, but where is the proof?
There's no
Where's
proof.
the experiment that proves their theory?
Because even I was asking, like, who came up with the Big Bang or the scientific theory of how the universe came about? The modern scientific theory of the origin of the universe is the Big Bang theory, and it came together over decades with contributions from many scientists. Can you recreate? Like, I don't think so. Even the theory itself is not one person's contribution, like, multiple people have contributed. So, even that itself doesn't hold.
Yeah, that's it. They don't know. They're just making up an explanation. Can they do an experiment and show how the original, Big Bang is the source of all these things? They're going to have to produce a Big Bang and see what happens. Yeah, what's going to happen is, let me tell you a funny story. This one person, he, I was a friend of his, or I was friendly with him, but he stopped talking to me. He was going to do cosmic exploration, right? With rockets or whatever, right? So he built some kind of a rocket, right? And it exploded and almost killed him. And then he's a rich guy. He's a very rich person. But then he gave up. He was trying to prove something, right? And then the whole thing fell apart. And then he gave up. Yeah, because they're trying to explain the origin of everything. Where did all this, chemicals come from, and so forth? But they have certain explanations. But the fundamental origin of things is not really clear. Where did all the oxygen come from? Where did all the water come from? Where all these things come from? Well, they might say this or that, but it's still a mystery. And my friend, who did an experiment, and the whole experiment was a joke, and then he quit. He stopped doing that. Then he did something else. Because he saw that what he was doing was not going to prove anything. The only thing it would prove is that he's an idiot. So to stop looking like an idiot, he stopped doing those experiments. Okay, so anyway, so we'll go on to the next verse. Every universe is covered by 7 layers: earth, water, fire, air, sky, the total energy, and false ego, each 10 times greater than the previous one. There are innumerable universes beside this one, and although they are unlimitedly large, they move about like atoms in you, meaning Krishna. Therefore, you are called unlimited, Ananta. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Brahma Samhita 5.48 says, Yasyaika Nisvasita Kana Matavam Ya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jaganandanata Vishnu Mahanasahiyasya Kala Viseso Govinda Manipusam Kanam Vajami. The origin of the material creation is Mahavishnu. Well, that's an explanation of the origin of material creation, who lies in the causal ocean. While he sleeps in that ocean, millions of universes are generated as he exhales, and they are all annihilated when he inhales. This Mahavishnu is a plenary portion of a portion of Vishnu, Govinda, Yasya Kala Vishesha. The word Kala refers to a plenary portion of a plenary portion. From Krishna or Govinda comes Balarama. From Balarama comes Sankarsana. From Sankarsana, Narayana. From Narayana, the second Sankarsana. From the second Sankarsana, Mahavishnu. From Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And from Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu. Shirodakshay Vishnu controls every universe. Ah, there's an explanation of the origin of the universe. This gives an idea of the meaning of Ananta, unlimited. What is to be said of the unlimited potency and existence of the Lord? This verse describes the coverings of the universe. Saptabir dasa gunot tarir anda kosha. The first covering is earth, the second is water, the third is fire, the fourth is air, the fifth is sky, the sixth is the total material energy, and the seventh is the false ego. Beginning with the covering of the earth, each covering is 10 times greater than the previous one. Thus, we can only imagine how great each universe is, and there are millions of universes, as confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 10:42. Atava bahunaitena kim gyatena tavarjuna vistabhyaham idam krishnam ekam sena stito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. The entire material world manifests only 1/4 of the Supreme Lord's energy. Therefore, he is called Ananta. Ananta, I think it means it's unending. You can't come to the end of it. Okay, text 38. Vishaya Triso Nara possible and so forth. O Lord, O supreme unintelligent persons who thirst for sense enjoyment and who worship various demigods are no better than animals from the human form of life. Because of their animalistic propensities, they fail to worship, your lordship, and instead they worship the insignificant demigods, who are but small sparks of your glory. With the destruction of the entire universe, including the demigods, the benedictions received from the demigods also vanish, just like the nobility when a king is no longer in power. Okay. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita 7:20 says, Karmas taistar shita jnana prapadyante nya devata. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods. Similarly, this verse condemns worship of the demigods. We may show our respect to the demigods, but the demigods are not worshipable. The intelligence of those who worship the demigods is lost. Krita Jnana. Because these worshippers do not know that when the entire material cosmic manifestation is annihilated, the demigods, who are the departmental heads of that manifestation, will be vanquished. When the demigods are vanquished, the benedictions given by the demigods to unintelligent men will also be vanquished. Therefore, a devotee should not hanker to obtain material opulence by worshiping the demigods, but should engage in the service of the Lord, who will satisfy all his desires. Akama sarvakamova, mokshakama udaradi, tivrena bhakti yogena yajata purusham param. Whether full of material desires, free from material desires, or desiring liberation, a person who has broader intelligence must, by all means, worship the Supreme All, the personality of Godhead. Bhagavatam 2.3.10. This is the duty of a perfect human being, one who has the shape of a human being, but whose actions are nothing but those of an animal, is called Narapasu or Dvipada Pasu, a two-legged animal. A human being who is not interested in Krishna consciousness is condemned herewith as a Narapasu, a animal instead of a human being. Okay, text 39, and we'll end with this. O Supreme Lord, if persons obsessed with material desires for sense gratification through material opulence worship you, who are the source of all knowledge and are transcendental to material qualities, they are not subject to material rebirth. Yeah, they become liberated. Just as sterilized or fried seeds do not produce plants, living entities are subjected to the repetition of birth and death because they are conditioned by material nature. But since you are transcendental, one who is inclined to associate with you in transcendence escapes the conditions of material nature. Okay, let me read that one more time. O Supreme Lord, if persons obsessed with material desires for sense gratification through the material opulence worship you, who are the source of all knowledge and are transcendental to material qualities, they are not subject to material rebirth. Okay. Just as sterilized or fried seeds do not produce plants, living entities are subjected to the repetition of birth and death because they are conditioned by material nature. But since you are transcendental, one who is inclined to associate with you in transcendence escapes the conditions of material nature. Okay, let me read that one more time. O Supreme Lord, if persons obsessed with material desires for sense gratification through the material opulence worship you, who are the source of all knowledge and are transcendental to material qualities, they are not subject to material rebirth. Okay, they'll be liberated. Just as sterilized or fried seeds do not produce plants, living entities are subjected to the repetition of birth and death because they are conditioned by material nature. But since you are transcendental, one who is inclined to associate with you in transcendence escapes the conditions of material nature. Okay. Purport. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, wherein the Lord says, Janma karma chame divyam ivam yuvaveti tatpata tyakvadeyam punarjanma. Naiti mam etiso arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So we have to learn what the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities are. If one simply engages in Krishna consciousness to understand Krishna, he surely becomes immune to the process of repeated birth and death. Okay, so that should be our, what you would call, curriculum. Simply engage in Krishna consciousness to understand Krishna. He surely becomes immune to the process of repeated birth and death. There you are. That's the solution to all life's problems. As clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Tyaktva Deham Punarjanma 90. Such a person, simply by engaging in Krishna consciousness or understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, becomes quite fit to return home back to Godhead. Even those who are obsessed with material desires may also come to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead so steadily that they go back to Godhead. The fact is that if one comes to Krishna consciousness, although he may have many material desires, he becomes increasingly attracted to the lotus feet of Krishna through associating with the Supreme Lord by chanting his holy name. There it is. Chanting his holy name. The Supreme Lord and his holy name are identical. Thus, he becomes uninterested in attachment to material enjoyment. The perfection of life is to be uninterested in material enjoyment and interested in Krishna. If one comes to Krishna consciousness somehow or other, even for material gain, the result is that he will be liberated. Kamad Dvesad Vayat Snake Hat. Whether for satisfaction of material desires, because of the influence of envy, because of fear, because of affection, or because of any other reason, if one comes to Krishna, his life is successful. Yeah, because Krishna is prophylactic. In other words, you come to Krishna, you become purified. If you ignore Krishna, you might be a great scientist or great so and so, but you'll be a failure. When you come to Krishna, then, and especially by chanting his holy name, you become you can be liberated. And that's why it says here that the fact is that if one comes to Krishna consciousness, although he may have many material desires, he becomes increasingly attracted to the lotus feet of Krishna through associating with the Supreme Lord by chanting his holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
The Supreme Lord and his holy name are identical. Thus, he becomes uninterested in attachment to material enjoyment. The perfection of life is to be uninterested in material enjoyment and interested in Krishna. If one comes to Krishna consciousness, somehow or other, even for material gain, the result is that he will be liberated. Kamet Dvesad Vayat Snehat. whether for the satisfaction of material desires, because of the influence of envy, because of fear, because of affection, or because of any other reason. If one comes to Krishna, his life is successful. Haribol, that's our takeaway for today. And wonderful purport by Prabhupada. If one comes to Krishna, regardless of where he comes from, if one comes to Krishna, his life is successful. Haribol.
Hare
Thank you very much. All glories to
Krishna
Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada ki jai.
If one comes to Krishna, his life is successful. I like that. That's a good explanation of the whole purpose. If one comes to Krishna, his life is successful. Well, that's what Prabhupada has taught us to do, to come to Krishna. Haribol. We'll stop right there.
Yes, ma'am. Any questions online? Comments? Okay, I don't see it, so we'll end with that takeaway. Hare Krishna.
If one comes to
Krishna,
his life
life
is
will be
successful.
successful. Hare Krishna.